Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dee Reinhardt with Illinois WorkNet. Today we are going to be talking about the basics of money management and how you can manage your money through different life situations. And today our guest speaker is Juliana Heckel-Judd. She is a CRA relationship manager with BMO Harris Bank of everywhere, right? So, Juliana, welcome. Why don't you tell everybody what a CRA relationship manager means?
Sure, and thank you, Dee, for asking me to partner with you for this webinar. A CRA relationship manager, it stands for Community Reinvestment Act. So we partner with nonprofit agencies, community groups, really to promote affordable housing initiatives. And so part of that is the steps to home ownership. So it includes financial literacy, credit, budgeting, savings. So that's why all of this is very pertinent to your discussion today.
Great. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate your expertise in this area. I met Juliana years ago when she was doing some presentations for the Money Smart movement, and that's where some of our information has come from today and where some of our information will come from on our next webinar next week. So make sure that you investigate all of that, and we do have a list of resources at the end of the webinar. So if you have not already taken a moment to download the handout, you can do that, and all of those links will be in the back of the handout for you. Money has never made man happy, nor will it. There is nothing in its nature to produce happiness. The more of it one has, the more one wants. And Benjamin Franklin said that many, many, many years ago. I always learned a long time ago that money, like cash that you see on the screen there, is a secondary reinforcement. It's what you get for the work that you perform. A lot of people barter these days, but money is basically the root of all evil for what people say. But how are you actually going to manage your money? And that's what we want to talk about today. So we have a couple of customers, clients, participants, whatever you might want to call them. But today we're going to be talking about how these different scenarios might help somebody with their life. And remember that this is a very basic overview of what you can do to help yourself manage your money in these various situations. There's a whole lot of deep diving that we won't be doing today. We're going to do a little bit deeper dive on our next webinar that still won't be everything that you can learn or discuss about managing your money. So first we have Sylvia. She just recently got hired for her first job. How can she be successful with her new income rather than going out and spending it on clothes and purses and shoes? What can she do? And a couple of things that we have on the screen is she might want to investigate banking. She might want to establish a budget, create a savings account, learn how to use credit cards responsibly, and then build her credit. So let's take a look real quick before we have Juliana talk on the next slide. Why should you use a bank? Which of these answers are the most important? And all you have to do is click the little boxes. No, there we go. Okay, so somebody finally figured out how to click. All right. How are they doing there, Juliana?
I think we have one vote.
I see 3 votes, but all right. We're going to hide this poll, and we're going to move on to our next slide and take a look. So tell me, let's talk about this. Why should you use a bank, Juliana?
Well, some of the reasons are listed there. Security, less costly. I think less costly refers to depositing your check into an account rather than going to a check cashing facility where they do charge either a percentage or a flat fee for every time you use their services. Especially as a new a customer, maybe with someone with your first job. I'm thinking back, my daughters are in this category, so one of them just has her first job. And it's just more convenient. She actually has her checks direct deposited, so that really helps with the safety. You're not carrying cash around, you're not carrying a check around, and it's done automatically for you. When you think about that with the bank, a lot of times if you do have a direct deposit relationship with your employer, you can get special promotions and discounts and things like that with the bank. So make sure you check into various accounts that might be appropriate for you. Check out a couple different banks to see what they offer and see what would be a good fit for you as far as the banking. Another thing my daughters really like, I don't even think they get a paper statement anymore. They do everything online. They love the new mobile banking apps that are available. And there's also a lot of money management tools that you can receive. And especially for someone, a younger person that is, very techy, this tells them a great way to establish things. And there's even apps that are available to help you with budgeting and planning. And so that kind of goes down to our next bullet point. Budgeting, when you first have a job, all of a sudden, I know my daughter went crazy. She thought she had all this money, and, for the first time since school, she could go out and buy the clothes and purses and shoes, and she was very happy. Until after a month or so, I said, honey, you're not going to live in my basement forever. You're going to have to be responsible for your money here and be in charge of what you're doing with the income you're receiving. So I think a good place for young people especially to start is not so much with the budget, but with the spending plan. They're going to have to sit down and look to see what expenses they're going to be responsible for paying. So are they responsible for buying their own gas now? Do they buy things that they're going to need for their job? So it helps to sit down and kind of itemize where your money's going. So the first couple months, they're just going to have to do some tracking to see what they're even spending money on before they can actually come up with a budget and stick to it. The other thing is if someone has student loans, that's going to be coming into play in this section, so they're going to have to make sure they budget for those too. Part of the budgeting, in my opinion, should create a portion of it to be a savings plan. Whether they're going to be saving for a car, saving for a security deposit on an apartment when they move out, or whether they're saving for something more long-term. Another great way, especially for younger people to do that, is just have the savings automatically put into an account so they don't have to worry about it every month. So maybe having a direct deposit into a savings account, a lot of banks can set that up. It's just a really good plan. Pay yourself first. We've all heard that. One thing they need to take a look at is their benefit package at work. Are they being offered a 401k? If they are, they need to take a look at maxing out that employer match so that they can get some savings that way too.
Yeah, good point. Good point there.
Yeah. And my daughter, they don't pay attention to that. They're so excited about getting their first job. It's kind of, take a step back. See, if you start saving when you're in your 20s, you'll be in really good shape when you're my age, that's for sure.
Right.
As far as the credit, use it wisely, yes, be responsible. A lot of young people don't have credit. So they're going to have to do some things to build credit, which is the last bullet point. Ask your bank if they have any kind of a savings secured CD program, a secured credit card that will report to the bureaus. Sometimes it's easier to get a store credit card to begin with before you can apply for an American Express or something like that. But down the road, they are going to have some credit history. So the sooner they get started with using that credit wisely, managing it properly, and creating a positive credit history, that's going to help them when they're looking for a larger purchase, such as a car or a home.
Right, right. Right, and those are all great points, and sometimes they carry through. So as we're going through the other ones of our customers, these points carry from type of person to type of person. So let's move on to the next customer that we have. James was recently downsized from his job. he needs to figure out how he's going to support his family while he's looking for a new job. And sometimes you just can't help that your job's eliminated, so you got to kind of figure out what's going on. And one of the things, or a couple of the things that he needs to look at is what's he going to do with his budget, how can he maintain his credit, what can he do to reduce his expenses, and how can he keep his mortgage current and up to date. So here's a question that we're going to pull up. What would you do to reduce your expenses? Now, I know if we've got any guys in the audience, they might not get manicures, but you know what we're talking about there, right? How are they doing on their answers there?
Well,
you can answer more than one.
I was going to say it's pretty evenly divided here.
All right, let's hide this poll. Let's move on to the next slide. So let's talk about these ways to reduce your expenses, because when you are on unemployment, it's sometimes a third of what you were getting paid per week. So you really do need to consider what you're going to do with your budget, right?
Exactly. And I think, like Dee pointed out, these are really basic money management skills, and they change over time. So, hopefully everybody starting out with their first job all the way through retirement does have some type of budget, but that budget is going to change depending on where you are in your life stages. So here, unfortunately, James was downsized. Hopefully he and his family have a working budget that they've been using all along. So maybe now they can take a look at that budget to determine non-essential versus essential. We also call that needs versus wants. So what are the things his family needs, and what are some of the extras that they've been able to have while he was working in his last position, but now maybe it's just no longer viable to continue with those. There are ways that you can trim your budget. You can take a look and see what you've been spending. Maybe eliminate your cable, downsize your cable package. Everybody and every family has their own areas that are important to them, and others that they can say, well, you know what, that we can let downsize for a while. Because hopefully James is going to find a job soon, so it doesn't have to be forever, but just to make it work while he is on unemployment, you may have to review your budget and see where you can cut some things out.
Right. Right.
And another thing that I think people wait too long sometimes, take advantage of help that is available. Check with your local resources. Can you take advantage of a food pantry? Again, some avenues, some resources that you need temporarily to help get you through this rough patch. The sources of income, maybe while he's looking for unemployment, he can work part-time. I'm not sure if his wife is working. Maybe his son could babysit or something, because other people I know, if they have collections or other assets they could liquefy to help just cover the monthly bills. So those are all things that you're going to have to take a look at to see what makes sense for your family. The main thing with credit, oh, go ahead, Dee, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, good point.
Okay. The big thing about credit, when hopefully, again, James and his family were very savvy money management people, and they did not go into this downsizing with a bunch of credit card debt. So because that can get to be overwhelming. And I know that, you're in a bad place, you get the credit card statements rolling in, all of a sudden you just stop opening them because it's too depressing. So hopefully they have good credit, they have a good credit history. If you don't think you can make your payments, call your creditors. If you have a good payment history with them, they may work something out with you, lowering the interest rate, delaying a couple of payments, something, but let them know up front so that they're not, blindsided when you stop making payments. Even if you can only make the minimum payment, continue to make it on time as long as you can, because that's going to help. We kind of
That's
talked. Oh, go ahead.
that's the biggest thing, is to make the minimum payment on time, right? Because
Absolutely.
that helps you with that credit score that we're going to talk about.
Yep. Yep. And it's important, and if you think that you may need to work out some kind of a payment plan or something with your creditor, make sure it's something that's reasonable. Again, there are a lot of resources to help you. There's nonprofit agencies that can help walk you through this process. One of the things Dee and I were talking about is, don't fall for one of the scam artists that say, give me $100 and I'm going to fix your credit score. It doesn't happen that way. So there are reputable credit counseling agencies that are available to help you either for no fee or a sliding scale. So make sure you look them up on the end with the resource pages. As far as the reducing, what can you eliminate or change, we kind of spoke about that a little bit. Needs versus wants. What can you do without, and what do you have to have? And that's going to vary from family to family, but kind of cut out the fat where you can until you're back on track. Now, as far as the mortgage, if you are unemployed, you probably won't be able to refinance that mortgage at this time. So I think kind of everyone should think, all right, what rate is my mortgage at? That's part of your entire financial picture. If that's something you can take a look at and see where you have a higher interest rate, that it may be eligible to be reduced. The interest rates are still really low right now. Talk to someone about refinancing. You may be able to lower payments, and that will help in your overall financial situation.
Right. And if you know that you're going to be going through a downsizing, like if the company announces, get the refinance done before you're out of a job, just because then that way you can deal with that. Is there still a federal program in place to help people with mortgages if they have been unemployed for a while?
There are various programs depending on who holds the mortgage paper. But again, check with your bank, check with some of the nonprofit agencies to see what options are available for you. Because
Great.
it can make a big difference.
Exactly.
And defaulting on your mortgage is one of the biggest hits your credit score can take. One missed mortgage payment can lower your score by as much as 100 points.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. So it's serious.
Right. So shall we move on now?
Yep.
All right. Marilyn worked for one company for many years. The company was moving to another state. She had the options to either move, be laid off, or retire. She chose to retire. So some of the things that she needs to consider is, what's her budget going to be? What's her savings going to look like? Did she get an exit package from the company? And what about retirement accounts? So let's take a poll question here. What are some simple ways that you can save? And we've talked about a couple of these already. And that question with saved, or the option with the save change, I throw all of my loose change into a cigar box. Think about this. If you can mention, Juliana, what's an option for somebody where they don't have a 401k? We'll mention that on the next page. All right, we're going to hide this poll.
Wait, what was the winner? I couldn't sign up. Put a percentage of each check into savings. Very good.
Yeah.
And again, you know what? If you set that up automatically, it's something you're never going to see, you're never going to miss, but at the end of a few years, you'll have a substantial amount of money in there.
All right, so more time on your hands can mean more expenses. I know when I don't have work to do, I tend to spend money. So what are you going to do? What can we do if you've got the option to be laid off or retire?
Oh, well, lucky Marilyn is all I got to say on a beautiful day like today. I wish I was retired. Well, what is the one famous thing they always say about retirement? If only I knew how long I was going to live after I retired, I could budget more efficiently.
Oh,
So,
right, right.
again, hopefully Marilyn has been a good money manager. She has her budget. She has a savings account, her retirement accounts, and now she's going to get that nice exit package. So, she's going to have to sit down and get some help. And my advice to her would be, sit down. First of all, talk to your benefits department at your employer. See what they're offering you. Make sure you understand it. Like what's, for example, going to happen to your health benefits? Can you carry those forward? So she's going to want to make sure she really, really understands her exit package and what's included and, how she's going to make that work. Because strategizing now is going to really set her up for the next, 20, 30 years. She looks pretty young in her picture, so. But as far as the budget, how is that going to look? So again, it comes back to that same basic thing. What are your spending patterns? What are your habits? What are you going to be able to budget? Now for her, she's going to prioritize her spending, but she's also going to have some things now that she's not going to have to spend money on. So maybe she, used to drive 50 miles each way to work, so she's going to cut down on her auto expenses and gas. She's not going to have to buy maybe suits anymore. She's not going to have to pay for dry cleaning. So there's some ways that she's going to be able to calculate and reallocate those funds into something that's going to be more meaningful for her now. One thing I've seen this in reports and findings that people the first few years after they retire, they spend the most money because they're traveling and they're buying things for their grandchildren, and there's a lot of spending going on, and you just have to be mindful of what your income is coming in. And that would be what she has in her savings for contingencies. What does that look like as part of her total retirement package? And then what accounts does she have available? It's really important to talk to a financial advisor because probably for her career, she's been putting money into her retirement accounts. She's been saving, which is very, very important. But now equally important is how is she going to be drawing down those accounts? Which ones, make more sense to draw down first? Where are the tax benefits going to hit her? So she really needs to do some research on that and talk to her financial advisor to come up with a plan. But then, she may change careers. Again, whatever works for her, she might be considering training for a new career path. She might decide to work part-time. She has a lot of different options. So one of the things is she may need to spend some money to go back to school to brush up on some skills. She may decide to go into a different field altogether, which requires licensing, so maybe a realtor or something like that. But she would have options to keep working if she chose that. So Marilyn has a lot of options. She's a pretty lucky lady.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Let's move on to our last scenario for today's webinar, re-entering the workforce. Paul has a conviction and served time. He's now ready to re-enter the workforce. He needs to reestablish his credit. He needs to think about a budget, savings, and maybe he's going to be able to be a first-time home buyer. Now, we have Paul who has a conviction, but this might also be a person who's been a stay-at-home mom or dad for a long period of time, and maybe their spouse died, or it could be just somebody else coming back into the workforce. Maybe they spent some time caring for their elderly parents. So reentering the workforce has a whole lot of things very similar to that first job person. So let's pull out this poll question here. How can you build credit? And we already talked about this, so you guys should know the answers. And you can answer more than one. All right, so it looks like people have stopped answering, so we're going to hide this poll question, and let's move on. All right, Juliana, how can people reestablish themselves?
Okay. I think the main thing to think about here is it's going to take time. Again, there's no quick fix. There's no magic wand that we can wave and all of a sudden everything is perfect on your credit score. You're going to have to know where you stand right now and come up with a plan to get to a better place. So as far as credit, he could be recovering from bankruptcy. He could have credit that's been compromised. I think his main thing is to get a copy of his credit report so he knows what's on there. As opposed to Sylvia, who's starting out with no credit score and no credit history. He needs to know what's been going on with his credit score and his credit history. And we're going to go into that more next week of how to get your credit report and what's on there. But even if you have bad credit, you need to take a look and see what it is so you know where you need to go. So I think that's the first thing with him with getting credit. Probably going to have to repair and rebuild credit. Again, it takes time. I would suggest if you're in bad shape credit-wise to work with a credit counseling agency. Make sure it's a nonprofit. They will not charge you. They can speak to your creditors on your behalf. They know the lingo, so they know how to kind of help walk you through some of this. But if you want to just repair it and rebuild, see what it is. See if there's collections on there that you need to pay off. See, if, God forbid, there was identity theft or something, but you want to see what's on your credit so you know what to do with it. And there are ways to repair and rebuild. Check with your credit cards that you currently have. See if there's any way to reinstate them if they've been eliminated. There's savings secured CD programs that many banks offer where they take out and fund a CD for you. You take out a loan against that. You never receive the actual money. It's kind of done as a direct deposit to pay that loan back. But that does report to all 3 credit bureaus, and that can count to really help raise your credit scores. And the main thing is you're going to have to just rebuild your history. So the sooner you get started with that, the better it can be. Now, the budget, similar to a new job seeker, of course, you're kind of starting over. You're going to have to track your spending first, see what you're spending money on, how much gas you need to get back and forth to work. And then when you track your spending for a couple months, you'll see a pattern. You can come up with your budget and make adjustments. So again, many, many tools to do this. I mean, you can sit down with a paper and pencil, or you can do a mobile app that every time you spend money, you can record it on your phone and keep track that way. So however works the best for you. And if it's something you're going to use, you can come up with the most, remarkable budget with all these bells and whistles. But if you're not going to use it, it's not going to do you any good. The savings. Oh, go ahead.
Good point.
Yeah. And be prepared to make adjustments, especially if you're starting out in the workforce or you've had some history in the past. Be kind to yourself. Try something for a couple months. If that's not working, make an adjustment and see what else would work better. So that's, make your budget friendly. It's not a dirty 4-letter word. How to rebuild your savings. Of course, again, pay yourself first, but someone in Paul's situation may have different savings goals. So he might be saving short-term to get a down payment for an apartment or something like that. Maybe his middle-term savings goal, he wants to save towards a car. And then maybe a long-term goal is he does want to be that first-time home buyer, so he wants to save enough money for a down payment. So again, just, make sure you build it into your budget. Maybe he wants to save for a vacation. Doing something fun with your money is not a bad thing as long as it's in your budget and you know what you can afford. As far as him being a first-time home buyer, what's required to obtain a mortgage? Well, kind of everything we've been talking about. You need to have good credit scores. You have to have some money saved for down payment and closing costs. And you want to have a budget so you know what you can spend. But he would also potentially be eligible for some down payment assistance programs. There's grants for first-time home buyers. Agencies have different down payment resources depending on the county you're in. The state of Illinois has down payment assistance for people purchasing in Illinois. So make sure that you look at all those options you have available. Veterans have some very good programs. There's a lot of financial assistance available to purchase a home, and just make sure that you're taking advantage of it. And that's probably what would help Paul, too. Again, nonprofit agencies, HUD-certified counseling agencies. Check with our resource page to let you know where some of those resources are to be found. But there's just a lot of really, really good information out there to help you purchase a home.
Great, 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 great. Let's move on and let's talk about this list of resources. We have a list here, and all of these links, if you download the handout, these links will all be live. We are going to be putting together a money management page. It is not live yet. That's the only link on this page that's not up right now. There is a resource from BMO that Juliana provided for us so that you can get some information. We also have some information from the FDIC, which is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, that talks about the Money Smart program. And then there is, what's great about this is the Money Smart program has a computer-based instruction program where you work at your own pace. They have it available in English and Spanish that I posted on the website, but they do have some of their other materials in 6 other languages. I thought that was really interesting. So if you want to take the course yourself, it can't hurt. Or if you know maybe a teenager that needs to go through some money management information, you can check there. For Money Smart Week, when is Money Smart Week? April 2016, right?
Yeah, 23rd through the 30th.
Okay. So there is a list of resources available there that they have links to different places, and then there are a whole list of Illinois partners that are like the BMO Bank that are community partners that go out and speak to organizations, and Juliana, you can talk to this much better than I can, about being money smart. So do you want to share some more information about that?
Sure. Yeah, the Money Smart program started at the Federal Reserve Bank in Chicago about 12 years ago with maybe 30 or 40 programs, and now it has grown to be a national initiative. So there's programs in all states for everything from what we kind of covered here, someone getting their first job, to buying a home, foreclosure prevention, living on a budget, cooking with fresh ingredients so you save money. There's just so many different topics that I would really encourage you to go to that Money Smart Week website, see what's being offered in your area, and take advantage because they're being taught by experts in the field. They're all just really, really good information and can really help a lot of people.
Great. One of the organizations that I spoke with in doing some research for our presentations was the Consumer Credit Counseling Service. And Illinois has a couple of branch offices across the state. They can work with you virtually or they can work with you in person. If you go to that website that is listed there, they will help you connect with a free or sliding scale counselor who will help you get your credit back on track if you happen to be in a position like maybe Paul, who has the conviction, or maybe you've been long-term unemployed and some of your bills are in disarray. They will help you work, and that's what Juliana was talking about, is get a professional counselor that can help you deal with the credit companies in the right form and fashion. If you cannot use that, you can contact your local United Way offices who might be able to direct you to an organization that can help you with some consumer credit counseling. We've also got a link there to some articles and some resources that are already on Illinois workNet. Getting started with money management for young adults is a link, and then financial literacy for educational success is through our Illinois Pathways website. So thank you very much for joining us today. Before we go, if you want to watch the news item for this webinar, we will have it out so that you can share it with any friend, family, or coworkers that might need the information. And you can always find us on all of our social media links. I'd love to thank Juliana Hackle-Judd from BMO Harris Bank for joining us today. I would appreciate her getting your applause, and you can do that with the little man at the top of the screen. There's a drop-down arrow, and you can applaud for Juliana by clicking on that down arrow and getting the applause. So thank you very much. I'll applaud into my microphone.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Hey, Dee, and everybody that's on the line, since we are doing our next webinar on the 10th, if anyone has any questions or would like more information on what we went over today, or you have something more specific about credit or, whatever, is there any way for them to reach out to you, Dee?
Yes. I'm going to put the email address in the chat pod. You can send a question, a specific question that you have for the money management webinar next week to info@illinoisworknet.com, and the ladies in Springfield will send those questions to me, and we will make sure that they get asked or answered next week. If you want to prepare your questions and type them into the chat pod next week, we will hopefully be able to answer them. We don't want to answer anything personal, though, so just make sure that they're kind of generalized, and then we can get those answered. So remember, we want to protect your privacy. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to be ending the recording in case, unless there's any other questions that we see. Thank you so much, Juliana. We appreciate your time and your expertise.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Bye-bye.